guest speaker today is Ray Jensen. He is from Primary Care Partners, and I'm going to do a brief bio, and I'm going to read it because I didn't memorize it. He is a registered dietitian and nutritionist, certified diabetes educator. He has worked in the field of nutrition for over 19 years, ranging from rural Alaska to large teaching hospitals. That's a pretty vast experience. That's a lot. His undergraduate degree is in nutrition from Northern Michigan University in Marquette, and his master's is from the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. He likes triathlon, kayaking, fishing, and being with his family. He's currently with PCP and works also in the Delta County Memorial Hospital. So I'd like to say welcome, Ray.
It's almost like I wrote it myself. Have you ever tried though to write something about yourself? They ask you for a short bio and like, what do you say? So anyway, thanks for having me. I know on the flyer that I saw, many of you might have been expecting Vanessa, and maybe that's why it's standing room only. Sorry, it's me. And on that note, obviously I'm not Vanessa, but I was talking to the new director of my daughter's soccer league, and he was a gentleman, and he kept calling me hon and sweetie, and I think that he thought I was a girl. So do I sound like a girl when I talk? It's complex after that, because I'm not Vanessa, and then this guy's on the phone calling me hon and sweetie. Anyway, thanks for having me. Vanessa would have been happy to do this, but I just came on with Primary Care Partners, and she said this would be a good opportunity for me to get out, do something which I enjoy doing, talking about nutrition in a public forum, and especially in a wellness program in a corporate setting, which this is fantastic turnout. So congratulations to all of you, and thank you for coming here during which I expect for many of you is around your lunch hour, if not your lunch hour. So thanks for being here. Any questions or anything before we start? And please, anytime you have a question, just throw your hand up, and I'll do my best to answer. If I don't, write it down and get your email and try to get you an answer. Okay? This comes from the handout that I believe probably Rebecca, whom I haven't met yet, is responsible for with eating the junk food junkie. There was a picture of a guy kind of going crazy with the hamburger. And this definition I took from that handout, and it says that the definition of the food junkie is the part of ourselves that eat foods based on what we crave in the moment or what is easy and convenient rather than selecting foods based on nutrition. So this is the working definition that I built my presentation around, and this is what I'm going to talk about, and I'll try and get Nancy here to use the little pointer. It's hard to tell, but these are bold and italic, so cravings, easy and convenient, and foods based on nutrition. Those are going to sort of be the three main themes of this presentation, is talking about what cravings are, how we can manage them, that kind of thing. What are the downfalls, some of the potential downfalls with foods that are easy and convenient, and then what can we do to focus on nutrition more from a nourishing our body standpoint, nourishing our minds, even nourishing our soul standpoint. I like to look at it as the whole person. So that's where we're headed. So if we think about food, and I actually looked up the study that Rebecca cited in here. It's actually a study that was cited in Time Magazine. I read the Time Magazine article, much easier than finding the actual study. It's done on rats and pleasure-seeking behavior of rats, and the rats that were given unlimited access to basically rat junk food, how the pleasure sensors of their brain lit up, just like rats that were addicted to cocaine and that kind of thing. So that's where the whole junkie thing kind of ties in. Plus, we've all heard, I've been a junk food junkie. That's kind of been a saying that's been around for a long time. One of the problems is that we have dealers all around us. Neighborhood fast food young man looks like, I don't know, maybe Long John Silver's in that color, to even more insidious grandma or mom. At my grandmother's house, there's always cookies, cake, pie. Ray eats some. There used to be a pan of bacon grease, always ready to throw something on. So the challenges are set up against us in our family lives, in our community, sometimes even in our workplace when it comes to making healthy food choices. The challenges are all around us. Oh, I need to point this there. So take a couple looks at these pictures. And if you will, and I'm going to do, and I'm glad I heard that. Because we're gonna do a little bit of today, sort of putting our thoughts in touch with our physiology when it comes to eating and eating behaviors and cravings and that kind of thing. So take that in for a second longer. Notice the richness of the chocolate frosting is kind of dripping down there. The cake looks extra moist, some nice fresh raspberries on top. Looks pretty tasty. Yeah, not so much. And I'm sorry, I didn't try to find the most pathetic piece of broccoli. Make sure that's bad broccoli. I would. It's not even a fair comparison if it was nice, green, robust looking broccoli. But I think we see the obvious thing is this: we elicit different responses, even just from our visual cues, when we look at these pictures of different foods. So what do you feel when you first saw these pictures? So if anybody wants to share, I'd appreciate it. When you first saw the chocolate cake, what did you think?
Made me hungry.
Made you hungry? Yeah, you bet it did. Comfortable. Desire, yeah. How about the broccoli?
Not so much.
Not feeling the broccoli. And I'm a big broccoli fan, like, yeah. Maybe I should. So what is a craving? And I'm going to try not to read all the slides to you guys because I know you can read it. I know when I'm in presentations that's not one of my favorite things. So as we go through here, I'm just going to kind of paraphrase some of my bullet points, but there's really not one solid definition for a craving. Anybody in here ever been pregnant? Not me, no. So that's a craving phenomenon in and of itself, that if you had to explain that to other people, or you maybe even tried, did anybody have an experience trying to explain those cravings that you might have had when you were pregnant?
No.
Yeah.
Justifying them to my husband.
Which probably didn't. He just.
No, he thinks I'm crazy.
Oh, you're pregnant right now.
Oh, I'm very pregnant.
Oh, okay. Oh, perfect. You're
So
like planted in here.
It's like when you tell him, and you want something so specific, and it can't be it has to be that one thing, and then he goes, really, I can't, I want the Ben & Jerry's Chunky Monkey.
Right.
He goes, can I just get you some vanilla ice cream with bananas and walnuts and chocolate? No, I want the Chunky Monkey.
Yeah, well, can you come back at 4? You're a perfect example.
Will you bring Chunky Monkey?
That's one of my favorites. Like, keep it around the office. Well, thanks for sharing that. One thing is, kind of like we were talking about with the rats, is that feel-good neurotransmitters in our brain, the brain chemistry that can be related to cravings, whether we crave something because our serotonin levels might be low, so we seek out sweets, carbohydrates, which can help produce more serotonin. You might have heard that or read that before. When we eat foods, and we can become, there is some neuroscience research that supports this, that we can become conditioned. We eat high fat, high sugary, even high salty foods, that our brain pleasure center starts to like that. And we can develop, I don't think addiction is too strong of a word. I know that I've met many people in my time as a dietitian that have quit smoking, that have quit drinking, have quit using illicit drugs, but we have to eat, right? We always have to eat. But what we choose is a whole different matter, and how much of what we choose is a whole different matter. And there are some people that I do believe that have valid, food addictions, and I think there's a biochemical part to it. There's of course, a psychosocial part to it. It goes very deep. But when we're just talking about everyday run-of-the-mill cravings, I think it's important to give some validity to the idea that it's not just willpower. It's not I'm just weak because there's a bowl of chocolate and chocolate owns me and I have no power over it. There could be other things going on too. Not to say that in the end the goal is for us to be in control, just that there's some challenges out there. Salt can be kind of unique. We might crave salt physiologically when we're thirsty. So because water follows salt, you crave salt, you drink more water, your body retains the water. So what is a craving? We did a demonstration with the site. Did that make anybody really think they wanted some chocolate? Or at least think a little bit about chocolate? I'm sorry to do that, it's kind of, especially if you haven't had much. Smell, sound, touch, taste, all of our senses can be a factor in eliciting a craving or a craving kind of desire. Anybody get cravings just seem to happen around the same time every day? Or same circumstances? You know, I know I work at the hospital in Delta, and the people who work in payroll, they're on payroll Fridays, they're very stressed. And they actually have the cafeteria a request to them every other week to make cinnamon rolls. And so the cafeteria ladies, who are fantastic cooks and bakers, they make cinnamon rolls, and that smell permeates throughout the hospital. And it's like, oh, watch out, don't get in the way, because people are just coming to get those cinnamon rolls. So the people in payroll, at least, have been sort of conditioned that it's payroll Friday, it's time for a cinnamon roll. Other people know that it's payroll Friday and that it's about the time they mail out the pay stuff, so cinnamon rolls. So the time of the day, the smell, the excitement in the air, all those kinds of things can start to get a built-in craving. And it's hard to fight against that. So the big question is, how do we manage our cravings? And that person, there's one on face there, he's got the big question on his head. If only it were this easy. I'm kind of old, so this is Far Side. For those of you who remember Far Side, but it's the classic. Dry or canned or dry. You know, if it was that easy for us as humans, and we were equally excited at every meal, getting one of those, things would be so much easier. But unfortunately, it's much more complex than that. So hunger versus a craving. So learning the difference between physical hunger and cravings. You guys do a thing called swap, right? So here's the problem with one of the problems with insomnia, and I know you guys work with people in all different realms, and so maybe you can pull me aside after and help me with this, but I'm a terrible sleeper. So I'm thinking about swaps, and I say, okay, what's swap spelled backward? Well, drop the S, it's pause, but like, for me it'd be like keep your paws off those cookies, right? But if you take, what's it, a homonym, where a word sounds the same but it's spelled different? So pause, that's why, isn't this creative? Or borderline, you know, pause, literally, take that time. And when I say time, I mean literally, watch a clock, let 30 seconds go by. Physically move yourself. There's research that shows doing something as simple, moving from that chair to that chair, just getting up and moving, can give your brain what it needs to sort of reset, change the channel, if you will, and kind of think, okay, am I really hungry, or is this a craving? Is this something that's going to pass, or what's the context here? What's really going on? So that pause, and I'm sorry I had to listen to that story where it came from, is really important. Being proactive, again, you know, I love cinnamon rolls too, so on payroll Fridays, I make sure that I have a nice lunch and that I'm satisfied, so when I smell the cinnamon rolls, I don't go running in there. I had ankle surgery, and I gained 18 pounds in like 2.5 months. And I know how to eat, but I just quit running and biking and doing all the things I like to do. It's just like, so none of us are immune. It doesn't matter what you know or what you do. I mean, all those things can affect us. So being proactive, always important. We're going to talk more about that kind of stuff. Using your swaps is, can somebody give me some example of what your individual swaps are as far as either switching out foods or activities or something like that? Yes.
Instead of fried eggs, I'll use a poached egg.
Very good, yeah.
Instead
Okay.
of fried.
So dramatically cutting the fat content there. It's excellent.
One of the things that worked well for me is to freeze a banana and then peel it and chunk it up and put it in a processor and just put a little bit of vanilla in it, and I'll maybe do some 70% cocoa or dark chocolate. I swear to God, it is exactly like ice cream.
Oh, nice.
It's creamy, it's so delicious.
Well, and so get out of my head, number one. That's in my slide coming up, but not with the nice twist that you put on it, but save that because that's really, I'm going to add that to the 4 o'clock. And, so yeah, using a swap. So if you have a craving for something and you know that, I think I put on here, for me, I love chocolate ice cream, but it's not really that often that I crave it, and if I don't have it around the house, I'm not that tempted. But sometimes I do get the craving, and I find for me, those fat-free Fudge Pops, I mean, they still have some sugar, but they're a lot less calories. I think it's 105 calories in one of them. If I eat one of those, it's not the same as eating, you know, a big bowl of chocolate ice cream, but I feel a lot better after. I don't have the guilt, I don't feel bloated, I don't feel like, I'm in a food coma, I need a 2-hour nap. It's just about right, okay? So whatever it is for you, kind of having a go-to snack available. So your example with the bananas and the cocoa and
It's
everything,
another bag for you.
no, it's perfect, that's great.
And it is so similar to ice cream, I can't believe it.
And it gets back to this part though here, being proactive. You know, if you wait too late,
You have to have banana frozen.
yeah, you gotta have it ready, you gotta have it ready, exactly right. Eat well, balanced meals. So of course, we've heard this, you know, forever. It's important that we eat on a regular basis and that our meals be balanced. We know that even if you think you're eating a good lunch, but you skip breakfast, that can come back to sort of bite you in the rear end in the afternoon and in the evening. It can go all the way back to breakfast. So breakfast is important, and that's not to say that everybody has to sit down and eat a big farmer's breakfast. But eating something in the morning, there's some carbohydrates, some protein, and usually with the protein you're gonna have some fat. That's a great way to start your day. You haven't eaten in, well, several hours, in my case like 3. But for normal people, you know, 7, 8, 9 hours maybe. So it's important to have a healthy, balanced breakfast. We want to drink about 64 ounces of water per day, and most of the I've heard you can drink too much water. That's kind of true if you maybe are from Massachusetts and you've been riding your bike out there, and then you come out here to Moab and it's 90 degrees and dry, and you ride your bike all day long and all you do is drink water and you don't replenish your electrolytes. You could get in trouble and you could have like hyponatremia or low sodium. For most of us, if our kidneys are working right and we're eating healthy, balanced and diet, and it is appropriate to replenish electrolytes if you're exercising for over 60 to 90 minutes. We're not going to drink too much water. So that, don't be afraid of, for most of us, unless your doctor has told you, I don't want to go against your doctor, don't be afraid of water intoxication. So that's that 8 ounce glasses of water a day. It doesn't have to be just water, even other fluids. So if you drink tea, if you drink a little bit of coffee, the caffeine in those is a pretty weak diuretic to use. Like when I first came out of school, no, you can't count those at all because you are going to urinate out more than what you take in, and that's really not the case. So, but I usually tell people a good rule of thumb, if you're going above 1 or 2 coffee cups or even diet pop or whatever, is match it 1 for 1 with a cup of water. Because then you might find that you drink less of those other things that aren't quite so healthy for us in many different ways. Don't skip meals. This is the worst case scenario. We skip a meal and we get a craving at the same time. Then you're in trouble. But if I'm anywhere near the chocolate chip or the chocolate ice cream, or Junkie monkeys floating around, not you, the ice cream. and there's the ice cream and you're hungry and you're having this craving, you know, you can eat a lot more of it than if not. So being prepared and always keeping ourselves feeling comfortable, you know, not stuffed and full, but just feeling comfortable. And that's different for everybody. That's different for everybody. We have to honor that. John still here?
Yeah,
Should I point this there or here?
there.
Oh,
Oh, is it not working?
oh, there we go. Okay, so other than exercise every day. Exercise can help control your appetite. I read a really interesting article just the other day in the Journal of Applied Sports Medicine about appetite and people that exercise in the heat. Can anybody else, you just walked outside and it was pretty hot. Their results showed that people ate less after they exercised in the heat. Anybody else feel that way? You know, we live in a hot environment, so, but they showed swimmers ate more. So there's this interesting relationship between, you know, your body temperature, your core body temperature and exercise, even though it goes up somewhat in swimming vigorously, it's not as to the point as if you're exercising in, you know, 90-degree heat plus what we have here. That can decrease your appetite. But also it can just help control your appetite. Regular physical activity with regular time meals helps keep your body kind of in sync. Your body kind of knows what to expect. And our bodies like that. Our bodies like that. They like that. It doesn't have to be monotony, but they kind of like the routine. can always be different foods, and of course encourage variety and trying new things. That's always encouraged. But our bodies do kind of like the routine, and the regular exercise fits into that. So being mindful of what and why you are eating. And I think this brings us to our first interactive experience. And I'm gonna, can I get a few helpers, please? Oh, just so you get the anticipation. Oh, so here's two people being mindful. And this is when you Google on for pictures online on Microsoft, this is thoughtful. So she looks kind of thoughtful. She kind of looks depressed a little. He looks like he's ready to really do. So, but this is what came under thoughtful. So the idea is here not to be like, oh, what am I going to eat? But the idea is like put some thought behind it. And we're going to do the raisin experience. So there's actually a couple ways for me to do this. If you guys maybe just pass around everybody so everybody gets a napkin. And I'm going to pass around a container of raisins with a spoon in it.
Are those chocolate covered raisins?
So it doesn't matter if you take more than a couple, because I know it's hard to just get one with a spoon. But for this, the purpose of the exercise, just don't eat it when you get it. Put it one or two or three, however many come out on your napkin, and then isolate one raisin on everybody. And I'm going to do this with you, and I hate raisins. This is like the twice a year when I eat raisins. You put raisins in a cookie, I won't touch it. Thank you for your help. Vanessa totally set me up. She said 15 people, and last night she told me about the camera.
There's a few.
Here's some extra raisins to get it going around. Is the afternoon one easy for less people? As the raisins make their way around, like I said, if you can, just whether it's on the side of your napkin or if you put it in on your lap or whatever, but just try to isolate one raisin, because what we're going to do is we're going to focus on this one raisin. And this, I should have looked this up, but there are some famous biologists who had his students look at a fish and describe it. And they were done in like 5 minutes. But then he persisted and I could be getting this story way wrong, but he persisted and made them look at it for days and days and days. And they increasingly noticed more and more and more about this fish specimen that they had to look at, things that they had never realized before at initial glance or even subsequent glances. So this is kind of based on that whole idea. We're going to use a raisin. So the first thing that I want to do is, who in here likes raisins? Okay, for most people. And a raisin is a dried grape, right? Okay, so, but we can like grapes and not like raisins. That's pretty common. Thank you. So first thing I have you do is just take a look at your raisin. And as you look at it, hold it in good light so that you can see it. And just maybe flip it over with your fingers. Some things that you might notice are, first of all, the different contours or ridges, the texture of the raisin. You might notice a different color. it's not all a uniform color. Is it, looking at the raisin, is anybody's mouth salivating a little bit? Just a little? Okay. How about smell the raisin? And just, you're probably gonna smell more paper towel if you smell it. Can you smell it? It's one raisin, it's hard to maybe smell a little bit. Any more, anybody get any more, salivary reaction out of that? Okay, so just look at it.
You can feel the sugar, and you can feel the sugar in your fingers.
Oh. You can
Moisture.
Oh, okay, okay. Not to see the raisin, but you can. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the raisin in, but before you put it in your mouth, we're just gonna put it in our mouth and not chew. Just set it on your tongue. Just put it in your mouth and not chew. Think about what you first feel, what you first notice. Just let it sit there. I know I'm talking with my mouth full. So I heard somebody said texture, somebody said wrinkle. You gotta be careful not to spit it out. What about flavor? Some a little, not very much, right? Did anybody's mouth get more wet? Okay. So our body automatically is now starting the digestive process, which actually even started when you started looking at it and maybe even thinking about it. Okay. Does anybody notice it's getting a little more plump? You ever put raisins in water like to rehydrate them before you bake or something like that? Okay. Now, here's the hard part. You can start off by taking one bite and pay attention to the flavor after just one bite. And by the way, that was exactly 1 minute. One bite's hard. But if you take that one bite and then pay attention to the subtle flavor that's released. Does anybody taste sweet? Okay. Any other things? It's hard to take one bite, right? Okay, go ahead and chew it up some more. And you can swallow your saliva. You do have napkins if you need. As you kind of get the pulp of the raisin, what are we noticing? More flavor, more sweetness, and then what's left?
It kind of just disappeared, not swallowing.
You just disappeared?
It kind of just.
I keep disappearing too.
Anybody left with kind of like a skin, like a tasteless wrapping of a grape? That's how I. But notice as you chew that raisin, even one raisin, you continue to get flavor from it. I mean, I've been chewing now for a minute and a half, and I'm continuing to get a little burst of flavor off of one raisin. Okay? So go ahead and finish your raisin. That's the raisin experience. Wow. Okay, forever changed. The whole idea of that is Paula Anderson, who does marketing at Primary Care Partners and used to be on TV with the public access cooking show, and some of you may know her. She's very into nutrition and healthful eating and mindful eating. And this is an exercise in mindful eating. And one thing that's important is because we do a lot of mindless eating. We just eat because we can, and because that's what we do. But mindful eating is important. So I'm going to go back real quick. Being mindful of what and why you are eating. You just ate a raisin, and why? Because this guy begged you to. So thanks for doing that. But it's not very often. I shouldn't say it's not very often, but I'll ask it as a question. How often is it that when we eat, that we actually think about what and why we're eating? And some people take this to, and I think I have this in a coming up slide, of thinking about the food's origin. Who grew it? Where was it grown? What was the soil like? What was the climate like? How did it get from that location to where we are now? That's very mindful eating, and being appreciative of it. And not just like if we're saying grace and thank you for this food and for the nourishment, but understanding that even for the raisins to get in that container to this room, 100 years ago or something, they say California raisins, so let's say they came from California. That would be a big deal to transport those. Now, overnight or less. So there is something to be appreciative in thinking that considering the source and the relationship between how the food is first grown and then it ends up at our tables in front of us, whether it's at home or at work or wherever we eat. So moving on here to foods that are typically easy and convenient, and this is the middle part of that quote where Rebecca had talked about the foods that these are going to be the kind of foods that the junkie in us is going to seek out. These are the kind of foods that we might have sort of a programmed pleasure response to, like, ooh, McDonald's fries, I love those. And when I eat McDonald's fries, I can't stop until I'm completely satisfied. For other people, it might be a cookie or a donut or several. It could be some kind of candy. I just had a client in my office who keeps minis, Hershey's minis in her office with her. And for people that come in her office, is what she said, and she was very honest about this, but she ends up eating almost the whole bowl every day, even though they're minis. So the obvious thing is don't bring them in the office, but it's a hard thing to get unused to, right? So anyway, I don't think there's any big surprises here, and truthfully, there's not going to be big surprises all day. So if you were waiting for one. So smarter snacking, and these are just some things. So if you want something crunchy, here are just some ideas. Apple and whole grain breadstick, that's something that I like to do. I like apples, and then slicing an apple sometimes can make a great big difference over just trying to eat an apple. Even if you have perfect teeth and you have no problems biting and chewing, slicing an apple changes its flavor because you have more of the surface area of the apple exposed to your taste buds, and when you take a bite, it changes its flavor. And the presentation also affects how we view it. So having an apple and then with like a whole grain breadstick, that's something that's really crunchy. I like it because it's the sweet and the salty together. All of these, for me personally, if I do them with water, that's really what kind of seals the deal as far as being satisfying. The old standby, having some vegetables to crunch on, broccoli, carrots, not the broccoli that we showed earlier. An unsalted rice cake with a little bit of peanut butter, that can be, or some other kind of nut butter. The key there is just not too much of the nut butter, but that can be a nice satisfying snack. When we're thirsty, we really need to drink water. You know, we tell our kids that, and but we forget that sometimes as adults. But many of us are walking around in not a clinical state of dehydration, but a subclinical state of dehydration. We need to drink more water. Fat-free milk or soy milk, almond milk, rice milk, whatever you like. Low sodium tomato or veggie juice, like low sodium V8, something like that. I put that up, and sometimes people tell me that actually makes them thirstier, more thirsty. So it's an individual thing, like so many of these are. Just some ideas for you, and this is when we're going to get to the banana thing here in a minute. Hot, so it's still summer, so I know that this doesn't seem appropriate right now, but sometimes, especially when it's cooler, or doing you work in an office that's freezing, you have to keep a sweatshirt or sweater there, you know, even during the summer. So sometimes I know at the hospital, there's 3 of us there, and we share an office, and the nurse who's on the left of me, she drinks hot cocoa in the afternoon, even though it's July. You step outside, it's like an oven, but in the office, it's like a fridge. So when appropriate, another thing about hot foods is they can help us feel full or feel satisfied sooner than cold foods. So that can make a difference too. So you might have heard, you know, eating some like a vegetable broth-based soup before a meal can help decrease your total intake at a meal. Munchy things, just things to kind of munch on, unsalted nuts. There was some research that got a fair amount of public press about nuts. 2 groups of people, they ate roughly the same amount of calories. One group of them ate about 1/8 of a cup of nuts, which is, if you make your palm of your hand kind of cup like that, it would fill that up, maybe about like 12 or 15 almonds. Even though that's about 100 calories a day more, they didn't gain weight. So something with the nuts, the people, even though because 100 calories over 30 days roughly, you gain a pound in theory, but they didn't. and lots of good, healthy, heart healthy fats in nuts. Cherry or grape tomatoes, that's a big go-to for me. I have a daughter, and, which was a nice thing for me. I got to see her at her lunch break over here at the school. And she loves cherry grape tomatoes, and she'll eat them like, that's a treat for her. So if you like those, and they kind of sweet, and they also have that tough skin, so you get that little bit of a crunch when you first eat them. Low-fat cheese, cheese sticks. Some people, cheese, if you want the real thing, maybe it's, if you can do small amounts, an ounce or less of the regular cheese, that'd be fine. And there's some low-fat and fat-free cheeses, my personal opinion is, I don't even want to go there. Sweet raisins, frozen grapes or banana slices, there we go. But now we know banana slices with what, cocoa and,
Well, actually, I have a NutriBullet, and I blend it, and it just takes like 3 or 4 pulses, and it turns it really into creamy ice cream texture, like a rich, heavy cream ice cream.
oh, nice. I know that the frozen part, when I worked in dialysis, people oftentimes were on fluid restrictions, like take a certain amount of fluid in a day. And so they're chronically thirsty, and it's just a horrible position to be in, with dialysis in general, but then being chronically thirsty. And frozen grapes and bananas were something that was really a good trick for them to kind of suck on and help keep their mouth moist. And also you get that little bit of sweetness, which also increases your salivary response versus if it was something that was a little bit more neutral. So if something's a little salty, or if it's a little bit sweet, you'll salivate a little bit more, and if it's more neutral.
Peach pits work too.
What's that?
Peach pits.
Peach pits?
Or I'm sorry, cherry pits.
Cherry
Is it
pits?
little?
Okay. Frozen?
No. But you don't ever eat them. I mean, you just hold them in your mouth and they keep your mouth moist.
Okay. We usually see if you can spit them. Whatever works. So low-fat fruit yogurt, unsweetened or with added fruit or without added fruit can be a nice snack. What's a common theme with all these things? Something I mentioned earlier. So, and we were talking about it briefly when we talked about the frozen bananas. I mean, how are these things going to happen? Yeah, you got to be prepared, right? You have to have a plan. We all have to have a plan because, man, it's so hard if we just. I read a thing in Food Service Director magazine. They said there's some here in Junction, like the new Maverick station on Patterson. I'm thinking of, and then the big, is it a Conoco on 24 Road in Patterson? They have little bakeries there. They actually have a food service manager at the Maverick because they make garlic bread, they make rotisserie chicken, they make cinnamon roll. But they said that there's even larger people that are more worldly than me, like have seen these like in Texas and different places. They have big gas stations / convenience stores that are even larger that have more foods varieties offered to them today than what you could find in a typical grocery store 40 years ago. I mean, that's in my lifetime. So for those of you younger, that might not mean much, but for those of us that are old enough to remember, like going to Safeway or something before it was REI, you think about, wow, you can get a bigger variety of foods at Maverick than you could at Safeway back then. That's pretty amazing. Over 50,000 new food products introduced in the U.S. market every year, either new or revision. So it's not necessarily a brand new food, but like sugar-free Oreos, they're out. And 5 years ago they weren't, that kind of thing. So nutrition and fueling for fueling our body and nourishing our body, nourishing our mind, nourishing our spirit and our soul. Nutrition is important for all of those things. And I think the more mindful we can be of that, the more completely nourished we can feel. Planning is key. We were just talking about that. Making lists, we've heard about that. That's really important. You can do some of these with your grocery store. They can give you food lists. You can do like with MyFitnessPal or Lose It, some of these smartphone apps. You can make food lists in there with foods that you commonly eat. There's all kinds of apps if that's something you want to utilize that technology. Thank you. So making a list might sound kind of old-fashioned, but when I went to the store this morning, I had a list of pencil and paper because I can't look at my phone memo pad and walk down the aisle at the the same time. So having healthful snacks available at work and home. If you ever come over to Primary Care Partners and you need a healthy snack, come see me. I got a drawer full because I know I'm going to need them. Eating slowly, we did that with the raisin. Imagine if we had our meals like that, savored every bite to that extent, 30, 45 seconds per bite. You know, that would, try it sometime, just even for a few bites. It might seem like an eternity, but it really makes a difference. We want to appreciate our food, appreciate our water, of course avoiding fast food. You can make better choices. I mean, the reality is fast food is probably going to come into many of our lives at times. Making the best choices there when you can, utilizing the menus, the calorie information, the sodium information, all the things that they have to have available to you if you ask for it. Avoid eating in the car while watching TV, sitting at the computer. Again, just sort of that mindless, we're just eating because kind of behavior. Everything can fit in moderation. I know many people stay away from certain things for lots of good reasons, and that's completely fine. But for many of us, we can eat and enjoy all foods in moderation. The key is what's moderation. So figuring that out and making a definition is, for ourselves, is what's really important. Fresh and unprocessed as much as possible. Great time of year for us right now, you know, peaches and other fresh fruits and vegetables that are abundant in our local area right now. When I worked in Alaska before, it was rural Alaska, it was a town called Bethel, which is 400 miles west from Anchorage and only accessible by plane or in the summer by barge. And I bought an eggplant, and this was in '98. It cost $6 for one eggplant, and the cashier had never seen one before. Never seen, didn't have any idea what it was. I had to call the produce and here was an eggplant. So just, again, that gets back to the appreciation of what we have and what we have access to versus, you know, Alaska's part of the United States too, and there are places, there's a really interesting, getting off topic here, but interesting thing about predictor of obesity, especially in children. Zip code, more predictive than many other factors that you might think of. So low income, where people don't have access to markets and fresh fruits and vegetables, that kind of thing, is a higher predictor of childhood obesity sometimes than family history, ethnicity, other sort of genetic factors that we think would be in place. So I think that's off topic. I'll come back to that one. Snack time. Okay, so anybody want a little snack? This is one of my go-to snacks, and I know that we're running out of time, and so I should have poured mine ahead of time. But anyway, what I'll do is I'll just go to my last slides here, and then I'd encourage everybody to try this if you like these things. It does have soy, so if you're allergic to soy, if you're allergic to nuts, this would not be a good thing for you, or gluten. So if you have any of those three allergies, which are 3 of the top 8, I should have thrown an egg in there just for good measure. Nobody would eat it. But try it, because it's one of my go-to snacks. And what it is it's kashi gold wheat cereal, which I call sticks and twigs. And that's what it looks like. And then honey nut Cheerios, so it's like 2 parts of the kashi, 1 part of the honey nut Cheerios for a little sweetness. And then I put almonds in there too. And this is a really good crunch and munch. It's got the sweet, it's got the salty, it's got fiber, it's got protein, and it's got fat, healthy fat. It's a great thing by itself, or it's a great thing with a piece of fruit or with a yogurt, if you want a combination. But this, with like a yogurt and a thing of water, and I have as big appetite as anybody, in the afternoon is a great snack, carries me on the way to dinner. So I'll pour some of this out for people to try if you want. I think I'm up. So, this is where we're headed. I saw a really funny bumper sticker, not to get on a hot topic, but, and you guys might have seen it, but I'd never seen it before. It said, if we outlaw evolution, does that mean only outlaws will evolve? Kind of halfway on with the guns. But anyway, so yeah, evolution, I mean, a friend of mine sent me this several years ago, and I like to pop it in every once in a while. I read in the paper the other day that many states are seeing for the first time, a decrease in the rates of childhood obesity. But guess which state isn't? Colorado, the healthiest state of the, one of the top 2 healthiest states in the union, you know, so the union, hold on, in the United States. Thank you. Questions? Anybody? Please, questions, comments, ideas? You guys are experts in your own life, and sharing that sometimes with other people is more beneficial than 45 minutes of slides. Well, my last little thing is just my daughter, when we're done, we reach our goal, we raise our hand and say, woo, so. That's my goal, and thank you for your time and your attention and your participation. And I'll have some of this snack here, and does anybody have any questions though? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.